She argued with a millionaire in the elevator. Now he can't stop loving her. That morning, Claire Bennett wished she had just stayed in bed. Her alarm didn't go off. The last clean coffee mug shattered as she rushed out the door. And the cardboard model she'd spent 2 painstaking weeks building, her pride and hope for today's biggest pitch, was now crushed from a clumsy taxi door slam. Still, she arrived at the glass high-rise in the heart of New York with fire in her eyes and chaos in her arms, clinging to a bent model and a folder of plans that she prayed were still legible. She barely made it into the elevator, stumbling as the doors nearly closed on her foot. Gasping, she straightened up, brushed her tangled hair out of her eyes, and adjusted her wrinkled shirt, only to find she wasn't alone. A man was already inside, tall, composed, and entirely unimpressed. He glanced at her through the elevator's mirrored wall, quickly, like someone checking stock prices. Claire met his gaze. Black tailored suit, metal watch that probably cost more than her rent, shoes so polished they looked like they'd never touched real pavement. "Could you press 22?" he asked. His voice was low and even. Claire glanced at the panel. He was standing right next to it. She raised a brow. "Oh, sorry. I assumed your fancy watch came with voice control." He turned slightly. Their eyes met, directly, sharply. "I don't use my voice to control others." Claire smiled coolly. "You're doing a pretty good job of it." Silence. Thick and immediate, even the elevator seemed to sense it. She rolled her eyes and muttered something about CEOs and oversized egos, then pressed 22 and 24, her own floor. Then, bang! The elevator jolted, lights flickered, and then nothing. Claire froze. The man, Ethan, though she didn't know that yet, pulled out his phone. "No signal," he said, already tense. "In the age of 5G?" Claire quipped, masking her own unease behind a half-smile. She hit the emergency call button. No response. "Okay," she said mostly to herself. "Maybe just a few minutes." Ethan inhaled slowly, leaning against the mirrored wall, hands buried in his pockets. Claire crouched down, carefully placing her damaged model beside her. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10. Claire exhaled. "So, we're stuck in a luxury box with stale air, and you look like you're about to go save the world." He didn't reply, but this time, something in his expression softened. "My name's Ethan," Claire blinked. "Thought you didn't use your voice for unnecessary things." Ethan actually chuckled, barely audible, but real. "This seems like an exception." "Claire?" she said, offering her hand. They shook, briefly, coolly, but something shifted. And just like that, the conversation began. The air inside the elevator was turning strangely still. The city noise, the rush of car horns, the ringing of phones, everything seemed to be on mute. Just 2 people, a metal box, and silence spreading like it had weight. Ethan paced slowly, his eyes flicking up to the ceiling as if he could will the elevator back to life. Claire sat against the wall, gently peeling at the tape on her model, trying to salvage a bit of dignity from the wreckage. "Do you get stuck in elevators often?" she asked, not looking up. "No," he replied, "but I do usually avoid elevators with chatty strangers." Claire let out a soft laugh. "Well, tough luck. Today's a bad day for both of us." Ethan stopped pacing, then after a moment asked, "What do you do?" Claire raised an eyebrow. "What? The CEO couldn't guess?" "CEOs aren't mind readers," he said, deadpan. "Interior design," she answered. "This morning's pitch is for a community center in Queens. Not big, but meaningful." Ethan nodded, eyes flicking to the model with its torn roof. "Looks like you built it yourself." Claire shrugged. "Can't afford to outsource. Spent the money on materials and coffee." He smiled faintly. "I'm heading to the same meeting, with Argent Capital." Claire looked up, surprised. "Really? You're presenting before me?" "Possibly." Well then, if I act sweet and charming, would you consider postponing it? Ethan chuckled, really chuckled this time. A short, genuine laugh like it surprised even him. Unfortunately, I'm not that easily manipulated. Claire tilted her head. Not everyone's trying to manipulate you. Some of us just live honestly. He looked at her, a longer glance this time. You think I don't live honestly? She shrugged, sincere. I think you've learned how to survive really well, but I'm not sure you remember what it feels like to be alive. The silence returned, but not heavy. Just thoughtful. Ethan slowly lowered himself to the floor for the first time. What about you? Are you alive? I try. I used to study law. My parents' dream, not mine. I hated it. Hated the trials, the suits, the dreams that didn't belong to me. So I quit, went to design school, started over. I'm broke, but I don't regret it. He nodded, something shifting in his expression. I studied something I didn't love too, but I kept going. And now here I am, CEO. Are you happy? He didn't answer. Claire didn't press. She just looked at him, eyes softer now. And in that moment, between four steel walls and flickering lights, something changed. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. Time inside the elevator seemed to stretch in strange, elastic ways. There was no rush anymore, no clicking heels, no floor announcements. Just soft breaths, half-laughed jokes, and two people slowly setting the outside world aside. Are you always like this? Claire asked, eyes fixed on the elevator ceiling. Silent, controlled, cold as steel. Ethan turned toward her, half surprised, half amused. Are you always this curious? Only when I'm trapped in a metal box with a man who looks like he's silently judging my life. He chuckled, softer this time, more genuine. I'm not cold, I just don't share easily. Claire sat cross-legged, leaning against the wall, watching him. So when's the last time you shared something real with anyone? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he exhaled slowly, like unlocking a door he hadn't opened in years. Maybe 3 years ago, with my sister, right before she moved to California to study music. She said I was like a machine. Claire smiled gently. She wasn't wrong. I was offended back then, but now she had a point. I spend every day managing numbers, people, strategies, deadlines, but not 1 minute for myself. Have you ever wondered, if you lost everything, what would be left of you? Ethan looked at his hands, then at her eyes. I have, but I usually push it away. She nodded. I used to do that too. Lived by everyone else's expectations. The perfect daughter, the model law student, the one who never said no. Until one day I sat in the law library, looked in the mirror, and didn't recognize the person staring back. He listened, really listened. His eyes held no judgment now, just presence. I got up, dropped out, told my parents I was sorry, but I couldn't live their life. I started over. It was hard, still is, but at least it's mine. After a long pause, Ethan murmured, I envy you. Claire raised an eyebrow. Why? Because you were brave enough to lose everything. I'm good at accumulating, but the more I accumulate, the emptier I feel. Claire tilted her head, asking gently, So, if you could start over right now, what would you do? Ethan smiled sadly. I don't know. Something real, I guess, not spreadsheets and Zoom calls. Claire smiled back. So the human part of you still exists. He looked at her, really looked, his eyes warm for the first time. You're not like anyone I've met. I hear that a lot, Claire joked. No, I mean it. You make me feel something I thought I lost. At some point in the stillness and flickering light, their eyes met, not out of conflict, not out of curiosity, but because both of them simply paused. Ethan looked at Claire, really looked, not with analysis, not with judgment, but as if trying to remember something, some forgotten feeling that once lived inside him. Claire didn't look away. She let him see her, and she looked back, eyes open, unguarded. In her gaze was a woman who wasn't perfect, but was real. Tired, but grounded. Messy, but full of color. And Ethan, for the first time in years, felt something stir inside him. Not loud, not sharp. Just a quiet melting of something cold he'd carried for far too long. "You have this way of making people look at themselves," he said softly, almost as if to himself. Claire tilted her head, replying gently, "Sometimes we just need someone who doesn't look through us, but into us." They sat in silence. But the space between them wasn't cold anymore. It had become something safe. A pause in time between two people who once thought they were too busy to feel, too rational to be moved. And then, slowly, they smiled at each other, not out of politeness, but because something quietly beautiful had begun to flicker to life inside them. The elevator hummed back to life like a whisper, nudging reality to return. Both Claire and Ethan looked up instinctively as the lights above the panel flickered back on. "Next stop, floor 21, the automated voice announced, grounding them back into the real world. Claire smiled, relieved, though something in her eyes hinted she wasn't quite ready for the moment to end. Ethan stood first, adjusting his tie, a reflexive, protective gesture. Claire watched him, her gaze softer now, as though she'd glimpsed a part of him not many had. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. They stepped out together. An awkward, delicate pause lingered, neither quite knowing what to say. No one wanted to say goodbye, but no one knew how to ask for more either. Claire spoke first, her voice light but with something unspoken beneath it. "Well, hope your pitch didn't get canceled," Ethan nodded. "And I hope you win your funding?" "Doubtful," she shrugged. "But hey, I didn't scream in the elevator. That's a personal victory." He laughed again, one of those surprised, involuntary laughs. Then, as if debating with himself, he hesitated a moment before speaking. "Have you had dinner yet?" Claire blinked, not because the question was shocking, but because it came from the man she thought would disappear into his calendar the moment the doors opened. "Are you asking me out?" she asked, eyes half teasing, half curious. Ethan cleared his throat. "Yes." Claire crossed her arms, pretending to weigh the idea. "I have a rule. I only accept dinner invitations if the person cooks for me." Ethan froze for a second. "I don't cook well." "Perfect. Then this is your chance to learn, or at the very least, set your kitchen on fire." Ethan looked at her, then nodded, slowly, genuinely. "All right, I'll cook." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" "Seriously, though I might need a fire extinguisher." She handed him a small piece of paper, scribbled her email quickly. "Send me the time and address. I'll bring wine. You bring the flames." They looked at each other, smiled, not out of politeness, but because something had begun, small, fragile, but completely real. Ethan spent the entire afternoon Googling how to make fresh pasta from scratch. He'd never hosted anyone for dinner, aside from wine-fueled meetings and catered investor briefings. But tonight was different. He even bought an apron. His apartment on the 42nd floor was all glass, steel, and perfect symmetry, just like him. But tonight, the space felt oddly silent. He reset the table, lit a candle he usually reserved for blackouts, played soft jazz. Then, waited by the door, 10 minutes early. The doorbell rang. Claire appeared in a loose white shirt, jeans, hair tied up, holding a bottle of red wine and a small paper bag. "Survived the elevator. Figured we deserved this," she smiled, handing him the wine. Ethan took it, smiling back. I was going to prepare a welcome speech, but decided to focus on not poisoning you instead." Claire looked around the apartment, so flawless it was almost intimidating. She exhaled quietly. "This place looks like a design magazine spread. Thanks, it's about to be covered in flour." And indeed it was. Within 15 minutes, Ethan's once pristine kitchen was a disaster zone. Flour dusted every surface, tomato sauce clung to his shirt, and Claire was laughing so hard she nearly cried as she watched him tear his first sheet of dough in half. "Tell me you're not seriously serving that as pasta," she laughed, hand on her forehead. "We'll call it an abstract culinary concept," Ethan replied, blushing but grinning. Claire stepped in. "Let me help. You botched it from the first roll." "You sound like a pro." "At least I didn't flour my own eyeballs," she laughed louder. And as they kneaded, joked, and ruined the first batch, time slowed. Ethan realized for the first time in years he wasn't thinking about emails, stocks, or meetings. He was just here, with her, present. After many mistakes, they finally had a halfway decent plate of pasta, edible at least. They sat at the table, poured wine, candlelight dancing off the glass. "A total success," Claire raised her glass. "We only ruined almost everything." "But it's still edible," Ethan chuckled. "And you laughed," Claire said softly. "You don't realize it, but when you laugh like that, you're not the man from the elevator anymore." Ethan paused. "So who am I?" "Someone closer to who you really are, someone you haven't let people see." He was quiet for a moment, then said gently, "I don't remember the last time I really laughed," he said softly, as if confessing a quiet truth. Claire didn't answer right away. She tilted her head slightly, her eyes still on him. "You're laughing now?" she whispered. Ethan smiled, a real smile this time, one that carried warmth instead of weight. The space between them faded. Only breath remained. Claire set her glass down, gently, as if afraid to disturb the moment. Ethan did the same, never taking his eyes off her. There was no music, no scripted words, just a silence full of permission. A quiet, mutual yes between two people peeling off their armor. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, barely more than a breath. Claire nodded, a soft smile curling at her lips. Ethan leaned in, slowly, cautiously. He paused when he was just inches away, as if giving her one last chance to change her mind. She didn't. Her eyes fluttered closed. And then he kissed her, softly, like a breeze on the first warm day of spring. It wasn't perfect. It trembled slightly, a little awkward, but in that imperfection it became something achingly real. Claire placed her hand gently on his, not holding, just resting, as if to say, "I'm here. I feel it too." And in the flickering candlelight reflecting off the glass, their kiss became something neither of them would ever forget, a moment where two people, for the first time, touched the truth inside one another. The days that followed felt like a quiet film that didn't need music. They walked through the park on Sunday mornings, bought ice cream from a little cart with a rusty bike leaned beside it. Claire dragged Ethan into a street fair, where he tried apple pie from an old woman whose hands trembled but eyes shone with warmth. They sat on the curb, eating tacos from a food truck, laughing as hot sauce splattered Ethan's white shirt. He didn't complain. He didn't reach for his phone. He just laughed, wiping it off slowly with the napkin Claire handed him. Ethan began to change, not loudly, not dramatically. He kept his phone in his pocket instead of on the table. He looked at Claire when she spoke, really looked. He shared stories about his childhood, like the time he failed a test and hid the report card under his bed for 3 months. Claire laughed so hard she nearly cried. "So even CEOs get grounded for skipping school?" Everything felt like it was unfolding, gently, naturally. Ethan wasn't perfect. Claire wasn't either. But they were learning how to breathe in sync. until the rhythm started to slip. One evening, Claire waited outside a movie theater, her red scarf fluttering in the crisp early winter air. A text came from Ethan, 15 minutes after the scheduled time. "Sorry, emergency call with investors. We'll make it up to you." Claire read it, put her phone away. No anger, no sadness. She just stood there a little longer. And then walked off. Next time, he canceled lunch. The time after that, he didn't reply until the next morning. Ethan was becoming busy again, piece by piece. His world, meetings, deadlines, late-night calls, crept back in like it had never truly left. Claire didn't blame him, but she began to pull away, not out of pride, but out of understanding. When someone wants to be there, they will be, without being asked. She stopped texting first. She stopped asking when they'd meet again. She kept living, designing, working, making coffee in the mornings, with hands a little slower, heart a little emptier. And in that quiet distance, even the most beautiful love can start to waver. Claire didn't pull away with tears. She didn't use anger or blame. She simply became quiet. Her texts grew shorter. Missed calls went unanswered. The casual "How are you?" slowly disappeared, replaced by silences Ethan didn't immediately notice. She wasn't mad. She never asked him to change. But something inside her had begun to close, a flower that once bloomed in sunlight, now folding softly under a cold wind. Weekend nights she stayed home, reading, sketching, instead of waiting for invitations that never came. Mornings she still made 2 cups of coffee, but only drank 1. She didn't resent him for being busy. She was just quietly heartbroken that, among all the things he prioritized, she no longer seemed to be one of them. And so Claire began to step back, softly, gradually, so gently that Ethan wouldn't see and her own heart wouldn't scream. She smiled when friends asked about him. She said, "He's doing fine," when deep down she wasn't sure if that mattered to her anymore. And sometimes, when the city lit up and couples filled the sidewalks, Claire sat alone by her window, hugging her knees, staring into the night, wondering, can 2 people who once touched the best in each other still lose one another in silence? Ethan didn't realize Claire had started to pull away until a quiet Saturday afternoon when he texted, "Coffee later?" and got no reply. 1 hour, 3, the whole day. He stared at his phone, a strange emptiness creeping in, familiar but foreign, a silence that unsettled him. For the first time, Ethan felt uneasy. That night he walked through the neighborhood where Claire lived. No text, no warning, just a pull he couldn't ignore. A knock, firm, sharp. She opened the door, and there was Ethan. No message, no warning. But something in his eyes was different this time. Claire didn't smile. She took a step back. "I'm working, Ethan. I know, but I need to talk to you. Not through texts, not later." She gave a silent nod and gestured him in. The studio quieted. "I've been sending signals, Ethan," she said, standing amid sketches and soft yellow light. "Did you not see them?" "I saw them. I just took too long to admit what they meant." Claire turned away, steadying her voice. "I can't be the last choice. I won't be the one who waits behind deadlines, meetings, and sorry I got caught up." "You were never the last choice," Ethan replied. "No defenses this time. I just forgot how to prioritize what really matters." "And what am I supposed to do with that? Wait until you're free enough to love me?" Ethan stepped closer, slowly. "No, you shouldn't have to wait. But I want you to know, I'm here because I understand now. And I'm sorry I let work blind me to what was worth holding on to." Claire looked at him, eyes both hurt and strong. "People often say the right things after they've hurt you. The problem is, sometimes those words come too late." "Then let's not let it be any later," Ethan said, quietly but clearly. "Give me a real chance, not to fix what I broke, but to do it right from the start. The studio fell silent for a beat. Claire didn't answer immediately. She glanced around, at her sketches, her dreams, and then back at him slowly. Finally, she nodded. "This time, if you choose me, I need to know it's a conscious choice, not out of guilt, not out of fear." "It's not," Ethan said. "It's because I want to walk this with you, through ease and chaos, through the busy and the quiet." Claire exhaled, something in her softening for the first time. "Then don't say it. Show me." After their honest conversation at the studio, Claire and Ethan found a new rhythm, gentler, more grounded, less intensity, more intention. And with time, their connection deepened into something quieter, but more real. They had rebuilt something fragile. Now came the test of how real it was, when your love walks into the lives that shaped you. Claire brought Ethan to meet her mother first. It was a small cafe in Brooklyn, where her mom worked part-time. No silver cutlery, no champagne, just the smell of fresh pastries and the glow of soft yellow lights. "You must be Ethan," her mother said, setting down a teacup. Her voice was kind but firm. "Yes, ma'am. It's an honor to meet you," Ethan replied, a little stiff. She didn't smile, just nodded. "Do you know my daughter's been standing on her own since she was 17? Ethan glanced at Claire, then nodded. "I know. I deeply respect her." "Respect isn't enough. Hold on to her, because girls like her, if they're not valued, they won't stay." He didn't argue. He just nodded again, this time with real understanding. Claire watched them both, her heart quietly steady. That night she told Ethan, "You did well." He replied, "She reminds me of you, strong, but doesn't show it unless necessary." A silence passed, gentle and full. A week later, it was Claire's turn. Dinner at Ethan's family penthouse overlooking Central Park, the kind of room where everything glowed too much and nothing felt truly warm. Ethan squeezed her hand as they entered. His mother, Margaret, greeted her with a precise handshake and a practiced smile. "You work in creative design?" she asked while pouring wine. "Yes, I design spaces people live in," Claire replied gently. "Ah," Ethan's sister chimed in. "One of those artsy jobs that pays enough?" Claire smiled, head tilted. "Art can pay if the passion runs deep enough. Or if one doesn't dream too big," the sister muttered. Ethan shifted in his seat, but Claire touched his hand beneath the table. "I've got this." Then came the question. "What do your parents do?" Margaret asked. "My mom was a librarian. She now waitresses part-time. My father passed when I was 8, Claire answered, calm, a pause, just long enough to feel cold. "Well, that's quite a climb," Claire smiled. "It's not a climb, ma'am. It's just a path. We all start somewhere." Silence. Then Ethan spoke, clear, deliberate. "Mom, Claire doesn't need to be praised or measured. She needs to be seen as an equal." Margaret blinked. Something in the room shifted. Claire turned to Ethan, a quiet appreciation in her gaze, not because she needed defending, but because he chose to stand with her. Later, in the elevator down, he took her hand. "I know I'm late," he said, "but thank you for letting me into your world and letting me bring you into mine." Claire leaned gently into him. "I don't need you to lead me. Just be behind me when I walk into a room full of strangers." Claire always believed she was strong enough not to need defending, and maybe she still was. But in that moment, when he spoke, when the room fell silent, when his gaze never left her, she realized something. She didn't need someone to speak for her. She just needed someone brave enough to stand beside her when she stood tall on her own. After dinner, as they stepped away from that cold, pristine space, she didn't say much. She just squeezed his hand, softly, but enough to say, "I felt it." and it meant more than any apology ever could. Inside her, a small door quietly opened, not because Ethan was perfect, but because he was learning how to love someone like her, gently, steadily, without needing control. After that dinner, Claire didn't say much, but the way she looked at Ethan changed, deeper, quieter, as if she was finally seeing a man who didn't just love, but listened. They began living closer to the truth, less illusion, fewer promises. Ethan learned to slow down. Claire learned to give without fearing loss. Their relationship became enough. Not perfect, not smooth, but real and present. But life, as it always does, reminded them, love alone is never enough. The crisis hit hard and unannounced. A failed merger, stock falling, media circling, board members pressing harder. Ethan, CEO of a tech giant, was back in full battle mode. Gone were the mornings he made breakfast. Back were the late-night calls, skipped meals, and a calendar packed beyond breathing room. Claire saw it all, from their tiny balcony, from the slow replies, from the tiredness in Ethan's eyes when they managed to see each other in passing. She didn't confront him. She didn't remind him. She knew better now. You can't rescue someone who's busy drowning themselves. Instead of arguing, she sent one message, just one. I'm still home, for now. Ethan read it around 11 p.m., alone in his office, fluorescent light casting shadows on untouched reports. 5 quiet words. No anger, no plea. But full of meaning, she was stepping back. He placed the phone down, stared, then stood. No driver, no assistant. Just a cab in the light rain, city lights blurring behind wet windows. It felt like chasing something fragile, something worth saving. Claire opened the door at 2 a.m. She wasn't surprised. She didn't ask why. She stood in a simple sleep shirt, hair tousled from sleep, eyes clear, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Ethan looked exhausted. No title, no role, just a man. I'm sorry, he said, voice rough but steady. She said nothing, just stepped aside. He entered the apartment, not his home, but the one place that always felt safe. I lost my balance again, he admitted, walking toward the window. This time, I tried to hold on to everything, reputation, power, control, and forgot the one thing that mattered. Claire stood, arms folded, silent. I resigned this morning, he said, turning to her. Not because I gave up, because I want to live differently now. Her eyes flickered for the first time. I don't know what's next, he said, stepping closer, but I know who I want to walk through it with. He knelt, no ring, no speech, just his hands, just him. Please, let me walk beside you, even when it's hard, even when I mess up, even if I have to relearn everything, so long as it's with you. She didn't reply right away. She sat beside him, shoulder to shoulder, forehead gently against his. They breathed. Then she nodded, barely, but enough. Okay, she whispered. Let's start here. And for the first time, Ethan smiled, not the CEO's smile, but the smile of a man finally choosing his heart. After that night, nothing changed overnight. There was no magic, no cinematic ending. Ethan and Claire had to relearn how to live together, one quiet day at a time. There were mornings when they barely spoke, too tired to try. Nights when Ethan still jolted awake, haunted by old patterns. Claire didn't scold. She simply placed a hand on his back as if to say, I'm here. They both began to understand. Love doesn't live in the grand moments. It lives in who still chooses to stay, after everything. Ethan started over. Claire, too. Not from scratch, but from the middle, where wounds had been, where hope had grown, where choice was now rooted. And slowly the little things bloomed, cooking breakfast together, holding hands in quiet markets, editing old drafts side by side. Not perfect, but real. Not glamorous, but full. No fairy tale wedding, no honeymoon in Europe, just a small, cozy apartment in Brooklyn, walls covered in design sketches and the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen every morning. Claire had just published her first book, Space and Soul, Designing from the Heart. A book about design, but also about what she learned from finally living truthfully. The launch event was held in a tiny bookstore, chairs packed close, warm yellow lights above. Claire wore a soft blue dress, standing at the microphone, a little nervous. But when her eyes scanned the front row, Ethan was there, looking right at her, quiet smile on his face, like just watching her breathe was enough to make him proud. After the crowd cleared, Claire sat beside him, surrounded by boxes of unsold books. They didn't speak, just leaned into each other, fingers intertwined. Calm, effortless. Their life wasn't perfect. It didn't need to be. Ethan now led a nonprofit focused on tech education for underprivileged kids. He took the subway to work, brought lunches Claire packed, and was usually home before 7. "You okay?" Claire asked as they walked through the park, still holding hands. Ethan nodded. "I've never felt more where I'm supposed to be." She looked at him. "Even now, when you're not at the top?" "Especially now," he said, then stopped. "I don't need a plan anymore, Claire. No roadmap, no future spreadsheets." He looked at her, steady and soft. "I just need you." Claire smiled, not because she was overwhelmed, but because she understood. She, too, had once needed blueprints for life. Not anymore. They kept walking, past old benches, children's laughter, the quiet rustle of falling leaves. Two people who once thought they were too different, now choosing each other, one quiet day at a time. Not perfect, just real. And maybe that was enough to build something that lasts.